Welcome to the OTA podcast where we discuss everything performance training. I'm Coach Chris Barnard. Let's get into it. Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the OTA podcast. I'm your host, Coach Chris Barnard, founder of OTA. And for this video, this is a little bit more business oriented for you coaches who are working in person, actually have a gym, and are trying to acquire clients. This also works for athletes and for Gen Pop clients, right? So one of the number one things that I've identified that works with is one of those game changers for most of the coaches that we work with, right, inside our business course, is the follow-up system from lead to prospect. And let's get into it. So for most of the time, coaches focus on how do I acquire more leads and then how do I get them to actually close them. The missing piece to that is actually being able to identify how do I turn a lead into a prospect? Well, let's first define the three different things. So number one, you have a lead. A lead is just contact information. It's somebody that came through some kind of avenue, whether it be word of mouth, on the street, through some form of online funnel, through social media. You have their name, you have their email, you have their social handle, you have their phone number. That's a lead. That's a particular person that has shown or gauged some kind of interest in your coaching business. Now, a prospect is when that lead, you actually convert that lead to walking in your door. And all the steps in between from the lead to making it a prospect is extremely crucial. In fact, the next step is taking your prospect to a paying customer. And I would argue, and actually the numbers prove it, that getting a prospect to a paying customer is much easier and a much higher conversion than getting a lead into a prospect. So we spend all this time on trying to focus on leads and then just thinking that they're just going to walk into the door and they're going to be easy to close, right? But we don't spend the amount of time and get very granular with the follow-up system of turning your lead into the prospect. And once we do that and we really zoom in on that with most of our coaches that we work with, they start to see a huge change in their business. So let's get through this. So number one, you have to remind yourself from a human behavior standpoint. A lot of times coaches think that they're bothering that person that they have that lead or contact with. What you got to understand is 99% of the time, right, you're not soliciting them. They raised their hand, poked you and said that they were interested. So in my mind, I'm going to have a very methodical follow-up process. So step one in that process is getting a hold of your lead and being able to schedule them a particular time for you to get them actually in the door. In doing so, what you want to do is you want to have a multi-day follow-up process where you're essentially between text message and call. So you want to call first, don't leave a voicemail. Simply follow up. A lot of people these days, especially for things that I sign up for, if I don't have that number saved in my phone, it's rare that I'm going to answer it, right? Unless it says something on my iPhone that tells me exactly what it is, if they identify that. And I don't leave a particular voicemail or anything like that. What I do instead of a voicemail is I follow up with a text message, and I just shoot them out a personalized text message, let them know who I am, let them know what I'm trying to accomplish, essentially set them up for a time. Because remember, they raised their hand and they were interested in you. Now, the next day that you do this, let's say you don't hear any response back from them. The next day that you do this, you want to stagger the time. So if you do it the day before in the morning, that person could have been at work. So all you're going to do the next day is flip it from AM to PM or PM to AM, right? And you're just going to mix this up. You're going to do the exact same process. You're going to call. If there's no answer, follow up with a text message. In that text message, say, hey, just following up, seeing if you got my message from yesterday. Very simple, right? This is where coaches feel like they're getting icky and they're bothering people, and it's not the case. You can't project what that person's going through. They might be out of town. They might have a million different things going on. I've gone through different processes where I've been followed up with like 6 times, and on the 6th time, I ended up responding and I was just too busy. And I'm glad they did, because that was when I actually bought, right? So you got to get out of your head and stop projecting yourself and reflecting on yourself and judging yourself. You're not bothering them. You're right. They poked you first. Next day, you do the exact same thing and just let them know, hey, at that time, you just want to let them know, after that phone call on the third day that they don't answer, and if they don't respond to the text message, or when you do put on the text message, just let them know, I don't want to bother you. I'm just reaching out to you because you said you're interested and I'm trying to schedule you. Once you get through that process, if they still haven't after the first 3 days, then you put them into a follow-up sequence where you can either shoot them automated emails or you just have touch points on a monthly basis. Hey, just checking in, see if you're reaching your training goals, see if you wanted to circle back around and be able to get on that. These are just touch points. I can't tell you how many times that we do these for the next like 3, 4, 6 months out, where it's just a simple touch point to a lead that came in months ago, and now they're ready to do it. Maybe at that time they were in season, all of a sudden tournament started, they're in the championship. That's the last thing they're thinking about is scheduling a training session. However, you fast forward 2 months down the line, they're in the complete off season. Oh, I remember those guys. I want to get in with them. I want to get that evaluation for my son, right? So you just, again, you can't project. You just have to put them into a sequence. Now, let's talk about the follow-up system to actually, once they have scheduled, let's say somebody did answer the phone, you lock in on a time, very specific time, you get them locked in. Immediately upon locking them in a time, even if you have an automated text sequence or email sequence or whatever it is, use a software that lets them know, you want to, within that first hour, thank them for their time, right? Shoot them out a personalized text message from your phone, thank them for their time, excited to work with name, insert name, and at this particular time. And then I always follow up with a line because I always want to respect my time. If for any reason you can't make it, please let us know and we can reschedule you, right? So many times coaches in the gym space, right, don't have enough self-respect and treat themselves like professionals, right? Where they just allow people to no call, no show to their appointment. Right? And so what I try to indoctrinate in people as us as coaches, if we operate at a high level with professionalism, we need to treat ourselves like a dentist or a doctor. You don't just no call, no show your dentist appointment, right? Or it might be extremely rare. Those people have it extremely buttoned up because they hold themselves to a professional level. So us as coaches need to do the same thing. So I'm very adamant about making sure that they realize, like, this is a buttoned up operation, right? This is the time that we said we're going to be in. This is what we said, all of those things, the same way a dentist or a doctor would operate. What's up, coaches? Real quickly, let me go ahead and introduce you to Performance Coach U certification. Now, this is the certification/course that I put together for coaches who want to train athletes and not only get results, but also maximize profits in the private sector. The problem that I saw with a lot of these courses and certifications out there for coaches was that they provided a lot of information and not a lot of application. So I wanted to pull back the covers over 10 plus years of experience and show you the ins and outs of actually being in the trenches so that you get maximum results while also scaling your business. So if you're interested in this, go ahead and check out the link down below and you can get more information. Now, after you did that follow-up text message, let's say it's the next day at 3 p.m., right? 2 hours before, an hour to 2 hours before that actual session, you're just going to shoot one more text message, right? And this is a confirmation text message. That confirmation text message is just going to say, hey, blah, 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 first name. I am just essentially shooting you a text message to confirm our appointment at this time. Again, this is another personalized text message. I can't tell you how much enough that we've even worked with coaches that had a great automated sequence, but that person could tell it's a robot versus the actual person texting them. And if you really want to increase, send out that personalized text message. Let them know, right? It's going to be a little bit rigid. It's not going to be as button. Let them know it's a human being behind the phone, right? That's extremely important. So confirmation text message an hour to 2 hours before, just confirming that I'm going to see you at this time. My time is valuable. I'm trying to make sure that we are on the same page. Now, they either show up or they don't show up. Now what do you do? If they show up, obviously you go through your process and then you enter into your sales process. Congratulations. If they do not show up, immediately within that first 10 minutes, right? Within that first 10 minutes of that, not them showing up, I'm shooting out a text message, just basically wondering where they're at. Obviously, we have scripts that we teach for each one of these things, right? But it's a very lighthearted message, just wondering what's going on, where they're at, and if they need to reschedule. And then from there, I go ahead and take the conversation to re-engagement, which would be rescheduling them and letting them know. And then if they are, if they don't respond at that point, they get put into basically the 3-day sequence again, and then go into the monthly. Now, the last thing that is highly effective that we noticed is if you can have some level of, if you're offering something, for instance, if you're doing some kind of direct response marketing and you have a limited offer that you're offering. For instance, you're entering summer and you are starting like a summer speed program, for instance. What you could do, which is highly effective, is if you don't hear from that particular person after the 3-day sequence and you don't have them on the line to get in, what you'll do is 30 days from the time that they entered, you send out an expiration text. An expiration text just lets them know that basically their offer is going to expire, quite literally, right? And it's going to expire within the next X amount of days. I would say between 3-4 days. Just wanted to see if you wanted to get online, right, for the original thing that they poked you for and were excited for and were interested in. That offer is about to expire for them. And usually what we see is that continues to get a good amount of people when you're ready to pull something away from them. So again, I know this is a little bit, there's a bunch of different touch points, but you have to realize that when you're doing it at a high level and you're accumulating a lot of athletes per month, right? You have to focus, you have to really zoom in on that process from lead to prospect, because like we said, prospect to paying customer is actually fairly easy if you follow a simplified executable script. From getting contact information, when you're getting a boatload of leads, whether you be running it online or whatever it is, the main objective is to get those people from lead to actually in the door. And the last thing I'll leave you with is you have to understand, you have to overcome the intimidation factor. So you have to have very warm messages that are very greeting before they even enter the door. A lot of athletes, parents, and just normal people, right? They sometimes know they want this thing. They sit at home at night, they see your ad, they're on their couch, they know they need it, the athlete knows he wants it, but they might have a misconception or an expectation of what's already going to happen within those walls. So you have to ease them, right? This is just human behavior. You have to ease them on the intimidation, right? And make it more warm and greeting so that they know exactly who you are, exactly who they're going to meet. So when they come in that door, there's, they're not having all these things run through their head and being socially awkward and insecure and all these things. People are insecure. This is the reason why, some of these, Anytime Fitness and your $10 fitness ones, majority of the population goes at night because they're intimidated. They have a fear based around their physical development, and we got to meet them where they're particularly at. And this happens even with athletes. Scared to start a new program, they feel like they might be inferior to the athletes there when they don't even know. And for us, from the moment that they come in and raise their hand and say, I'm interested, we need to make that an easy process and level with them and start building rapport with that athlete or that parent or that general pop client from the moment that they come in, to ease them into getting in those doors of yours, right? And then once you get in there, follow a step-by-step process to be able to close them. But I figured I'd make this because I feel like this is an extremely valuable point that a lot of coaches don't hone in on and focus on. So make sure you have a very buttoned up follow-up process once you get that person's contact information and is interested in your services. Hope that helps. Talk to you guys next time.